Okay, we're going to look at Sonnet 1. Why not start with 1? Okay, so we'll start by reading the rhyming couplet first. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. Pity the world. Okay, so feel sorry for humanity, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. So have sympathy for the world, or else this greedy pig be that will it's like get involved with the world, have sympathy for the world, or else you'll be this selfish person who keeps your own self to yourself and ends up selfish or dead. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. The world's due, I mean, you should give yourself to the world. The world's due. But if you're a glutton, you'll eat the world's due. Or the grave will eat it. We're heading for the grave, so get involved in the world. A lot of Shakespeare's sonnets are about encouraging people to live and love. A bunch of others are love sonnets. A bunch of others are, I'm so miserable, but when I think about this, it's not so bad. Increase, die, decease, memory. So we've got die, decease, memory, increase. So if you were dead, you'd be a memory. Decease is to be dead. Increase is to grow. So it's like grow or die, something like this. Second quatrain, eyes fuel, lies cruel. Eyes fuel, lies cruel. So we don't want to be dishonest with the world. Fuel, what's the fuel? That stands out. Ornament, spring, content, niggarding. So an ornament, a jewel, something precious. Spring, it's like growth, rebirth. Content, happiness. Niggarding is selfishness. Obviously that's not a word we use anymore because it's the N-word connotations, blah blah. At the end we've got be and thee. Be, well, existence. Thee, yourself. So for yourself to exist, remember the rhyming couplet was get involved in the world or you'll be this glutton who is consumed. You consume yourself or the grave consumes you. So be be. What I mean by that is live you live. Okay, now I've marked in the breaths. Now look at the end of the first quatrain. It's a colon, the double dot. So the higher value of punctuation. The end of the second quatrain, cruel, full stop, sentence ending. The end of the third, niggarding, full stop. The end of the rhyming couplet, the full stop, of course. So you can see the end of each quatrain has got the higher value punctuation because these are separate thoughts. We're learning how the speaker, the character, Shakespeare is thinking. Punctuation is the musical notation of drama. You know, if Paul McCartney lays down a minimum or a crotchet or a rest, you follow it. Then when you sing Yesterday, it will move people. But if you just start doing your own thing, you'll just present this awful rubbish. So be like Paul McCartney, be like Shakespeare. They've laid down, these geniuses have laid down the path. You know, we're advised to follow the path and illuminate their art. That's what the audience wants. You don't go to see Beethoven's Fifth to hear a jazz funk version of it, do you? You know? Not that I've ever seen Beethoven's Fifth, but if I did, I'd want it to be like proper. Okay, let's look at the punctuation in the second quatrain. So we've got a comma at the end of each line, okay? And there's a comma halfway through the final line of the second quatrain, line 8, after faux, okay? We've got a comma, third quatrain, comma after spring. So again, it's looking pretty even, that I think we're going to take a breath every second line. Now, in a Shakespeare speech, it's not going to work out like that. His speeches aren't sonnets. They sometimes are. The opening chorus in Romeo and Juliet is a sonnet. So the first breath is, from fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. Okay, but I don't want to start reading it, because I want to mark in the Césures before I start to read it. Once I've got the Césures, then I can flow, then I can check the breaths. So, from fairest creatures we desire increase. What are the two halves of that line? From fairest creatures we desire increase. So the Césure is after creatures. Thereby beauty's rose might never die. After rose, thereby this might never do that. What are the two halves of the line? But as the riper should by time decease. As the riper should by time decease. As the riper should by time decease. No, don't do that. As the riper, as this should do this. Not as this should do this. That's like a fake tension. It's like a fake pause. It's like when people hold their breath for no apparent reason. The audience go, what? Because they're worried for you. It's like crying wolf, and then the audience give up on you. You know, our job is to learn how the guy actually spoke this and then speak it as simply as possible. The audience don't care about the actor, they care about the story. You like the stories you like, and then you like the actors who happen to be in those stories. So if you like the stories that Johnny Depp was in, you probably think he's a good actor. If you don't, you're probably not interested in him. Or Tom Hanks, or whoever's in the stories you like, that's who you like. It's like music. What makes a good singer? Well, singers you like, pretty much. Be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes. So we've got a comma here, beginning of the second quatrain. Be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes. I think it's more, be thou contracted to thy own bright eyes. Be this to that. Feedest thy lightest flame with self-substantial fuel. Do this with that, the flame with the fuel. Feedest thy lightest flame with self-substantial fuel. Remember the quatrain, the Césure isn't a pause, but it lets you know where to find the flow. You know, again, do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a cup of tea? No. We speak I'm going to the kitchen, do you want a cup of tea? I'm going to the kitchen, do you want a cup of tea? I'm going to the kitchen, Césure, do you want a cup of tea? I'm going to the kitchen, do you want a cup of tea? You hear this nonsense all the time in amateur stage, certainly, and occasionally in professional stage. But almost every amateur show is people who just aren't actually speaking English. Their attention is on things that don't matter. The emotional state and the obstacle, let's say. Making a famine where abundance lies. Doing this where that is. Making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself, thy foe, Césure, to thyself, to thy sweet self, too cruel. Thou that art now the world's fresh ornament, thou that art now this, the world's fresh ornament. The world's fresh ornament is one thing. You can't break that up. The world's fresh ornament. You hear that all the time. It's when people are trying to sound great, they add pauses for no reason. Or like filmmakers who want to be great, they just make the film too long. Anyway. And only herald to the gaudy spring, and only this noun to the gaudy, this other noun, and only herald to the gaudy spring. Within thine own bud buryest thy content, within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl makest waste of niggarding. Make a waste of being a miser. It's wasteful to hoard things. The rhyming couplet. Pity the world. And we've got a comma. Often you'll find a comma on the Césures. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. Okay, so we've marked the Césures, we've marked the breath. So we'll have some water because the throat gets dry. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. But as the riper should by time decease, his tender air might bear his memory. So let's just get the sense of that. From fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. From fairest creatures, from people we fancy, we desire increase. We want to have kids. Thereby beauty's rose might never die. Thereby we become eternal. Our genes live on. You know? But as the riper should by time decease, his tender air might bear his memory. So, but as the older person should by time decease, should by you die, his tender heir, his young offspring, might bear his memory. And just like genetic memory, not memories of things you thought, but just, well, it might be that as well, but you live on. You live forever by having children. We're all encouraged to die at the moment. There's a big, big political thing about not having children. And we all fall for it because we all want to go on holiday a lot and have more clothes. And I'm one of the worst. Anyway. So, from fairest creatures we desire increase, that thereby beauty's rose might never die. So, from people we fancy, we want to do stuff so that we live forever. But as the riper should by time decease, his tender heir might bear his memory. But as the older person might die, his kids live on for him. Be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes. Actually, just a note on that first quatrain. It's not talking about the problem. It's talking about the solution. It opens with the solution. Basically saying, get laid, have kids. Second quatrain. Be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes. Feedest thy lightest flame with self-substantial fuel. Making a famine where abundance lies, thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. Okay, so now we get the problem. Be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes, feedest thy lightest flame with self-substantial fuel. So if you're in love with yourself, be thou contracted to thine own bright eyes. If you're like, oh, look at me. You know, the narcissism of our age is one of the ways in which we're encouraged not to have children. Not that there's any overcrowding in the world. If you've ever flown across it, it's all empty, and most of it's ocean anyway. But you know, on TV we see the cities. Oh, it's London, oh, it's Delhi, you know. India's empty. Britain's empty. Anyway. Making a famine where abundance lies. Thyself thy foe, to thy sweet self too cruel. So making a famine where abundance lies. You've got a lot to give, but you, by being self-involved, by your narcissism, you make a famine when you've got a lot to give. Thyself, thy foe, your own worst enemy, to thy sweet self too cruel. It's cruel to yourself to withhold yourself from the world, from having sex and let things happen. I mean, the other theory is, no one wants kids, but people do want sex. But these days we all want to decide, oh, when do I want kids? Well, it's pretty difficult to make that decision. So we all just wait till, oh my God, when is the last possible time where I might not even be able to have kids? And then we jump at the idea. Thou art now, third quatrain, thou art now the world's fresh ornament and only herald to the gaudy spring. Within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl makest waste in niggarding. Thou art now the world's fresh ornament, and only herald to the gaudy spring. At the moment, you've got all this potential. Within thine own bud buryest thy content, and tender churl, idiot, tender fool, makest waste in miserling. So you've got a lot to give, but there's a tendency to want to hoard yourself. Shakespeare's also talking about just the fear of getting involved. I mean, it's frightening to have sex and have relationships because suddenly you've got to answer to someone. You've got to grow up. And who does that these days? If only the Rolling Stones had split up, we'd all have been saved a lot of problems. The Rhyming Couplet. Pity the world, or else this glutton be, to eat the world's due by the grave and thee. Pity the world. It means have sympathy for the world, get involved with the world. Or else this glutton be, this eater of the self, this to eat the world's due, to eat what you should have been giving to the world, to devour yourself with self-indulgence. And you will evaporate by the grave, or narcissism. The great thing about Shakespeare is he talks about the eternal things, not the fashions of the day. And when he does talk about the fashions of the day, it doesn't work. What's eternal? We're born and then we die. They're the two truths in life. And then he talks about nature. So the beauty of nature. And that we are nature. You don't get a tree going, I'm gonna put a little net so all my seeds don't fall on the floor so no other trees grow because I'm thinking of going to live in Brazil, Just let the seeds fall. And okay, maybe they'll grow up and the other tree strangles you, but be nature for what we are, no matter what politics of the day tell us. That was Sonnet 1.